Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L and hey, time to talk Hero Academia, chapter 196. Woo, gonna do this. Anyway, yeah, so last week you recall, a big part of my prediction game was trying to figure out, when exactly would this little confrontation with the Tsuyu group be over. And I initially thought, this week it would just be done. But it seems like we're going into next week with it. And at this point, I'm still thinking at most we're getting 10 chapters for this. Even the Endeavor stuff was pretty short. I just don't see this going on for a long period of time. And so the thing is, I'm very hopeful when I see this kind of stuff. I would love it if all the teams got the kind of attention that this first group's gotten. But it ultimately comes down to well, there's nothing stopping the author from having, say, 3 or 4 chapters for every group. It's just his past stylings with the background characters in both classes just indicate that it's very unlikely that he's gonna give the characters that much time. Again, I'm hopeful for it, but the more I see the Tsuyu group doing stuff, the more I get afraid that the other characters are gonna get skipped out on, right? I could see Bakugo's group maybe only having 1 chapter dedicated to them, which would be unfortunate because at this point I want everyone. I want to see everyone. And when you look at this chapter, it's really good. You see what Class 1B was doing, and it's like, whoa, this is pretty neat. Especially Beastman. Beastman was pretty freaking cool, man. Him switching between beast form and human form and using that to get away at some points. That was neat. Seeing everyone come together and help out. Seeing Tsuyu have her little moment. This is pretty strong for Tsuyu. This is pretty strong for Kaminari. It's also pretty okay for Koda. Not the best. He was sidelined extremely quickly. When you talk about characters that still don't get that much screen time in Class 1A, Koda is still there. The only good thing is now Koda is ahead of Sato. But otherwise, I do think it's funny that he was one of the ones taken out very quickly at the beginning. Also, he's really buff. He seems really buff. I did not expect that. But it was ultimately cool enough to see that he was doing something. That said, it seems like his animal power doesn't really get a lot of mileage in the series. And I really wonder why. Because it seems like it could go relatively far. Anyway, you have just the goodness of seeing all these characters doing stuff, although it does seem like the author is still holding on to some characters, like the guy that stayed back to watch the jail cell. I am very excited to see how this goes, but this is such a great start for just showing the characters doing stuff and characterizing the characters that I would just love if this was the level of quality that the rest of the characters got in terms of the spotlight. So, I'm gonna keep hoping. This one's going for 3 chapters. I would love it if the other characters get the same amount of treatment. I should say same amount of treatment. I was gonna say the same amount of spotlight, but no. I hope the other characters get the same treatment. It would be amazing. So going into more detailed stuff, there's one girl that I really want to talk about, Vine Girl. And look, we know this has been her character since the beginning, that she's been a very devout type girl. Her little promo art is her clasping her hands and looking up to the sky and talking like that. But look, man, alright, this is a high schooler. It's just a little bit, it's a little bit funny that this girl talks in the biblical terms. I don't know how to say this. She's talking about, oh, that your little schemes will lead you on a path of impurity and, blah, blah, blah. She's talking like that. Come on, man. Why do you speak like that? How devout are you? How religious are you? And not only that, her costume is also very, biblical, for lack of a better word. And it's just funny. I wonder what kind of life this girl led that made her speak in such scholarly terms, what's up with her? Well, it's just kind of, talk like a normal person. Everyone else there is around you. You can just calm it down. You have a point. You can just deliver that point with the most efficiency. Man, my words are bad today, but you get the point, guys. She could just talk simple, and that'd be cool. But then again, with characterization, it's better to have characters that stand out, and this girl definitely stands out. Right? She already stands out more than Sato, so that's great. Anyway, It looks like she's going to be dealing with Asui in the next chapter, and the Asui stuff, we end the chapter with her having 3 clones. Okay, that makes sense. We saw her showing off her bodily goop. It's very interesting that she produces more sweat than Bakugo, and it somehow turned into slime. This girl is always getting some weird things going on with her quirk, but I guess that's what's going to kind of happen. Anyway, we have 3 Asuis, which is clearly because Beastman can't keep up with her, or you know, Beastman can't smell over her scent. So we're probably going to see a pretty neat trick here, right? We're probably going to see some kind of neat workaround coming from Class 1A. I am still hoping that Class 1A wins, because I do kind of want to see the narrative that Class 1A is still like level 60 while Class 1B is level 40. I do want to see that kind of maneuver happen. And then we have also the Shinso stuff. And man, the Shinso stuff is, I'm really happy for it, because you know, once upon a time, I was gonna make a Shinso video about his quirk. I had the script written up and everything, but like other scripts that just didn't feel good at the time, I just kind of put it in on the back burner, and then it ended up collecting space in my hard drive. And a good part of it was wondering, well, how exactly does Shinso's quirk work, and what would happen when it goes into technology? And one of the cool things that we saw here is that Shinso confirmed a bunch of stuff for us, specifically about the technology interacting with his quirk. Like, it's 6 minutes now, so I'll put up the picture. He says it right here. If my voice passes through a mic or a megaphone, it loses its effect. A good part of the video that I was initially planning was, you know, wondering what happens if Shinso records his voice and then someone hears it later on, or if his voice comes out through a speaker. But now we know it doesn't work. That's really neat. That's a really nice limitation that, while does kind of limit the creative uses for the power, I think makes it more self-contained and more manageable. There were other things that were also like just kind of being thrown in there with the explanation of the persona code. One of the things that I think is also very interesting is that since it can't rely on electricity, it's relying on, I guess, airflow, right? Because if it passes through an electronic device and gets reproduced through an electronic device, it loses its effect, right? So when they say that it's made with numerous plates, I'm assuming it has to be the plates are mechanical in nature, and then when the air flows through it or the voice flows through it, the vibrations or whatever changes it. So it's a very mechanical solution. Unfortunately, in terms of engineering stuff, when you have things moving more often, like the more something moves within a device, the likelier it is to fail, right? The biggest example is the advantage of solid state hard drives versus regular hard drives. Regular hard drives have wear and tear associated to them because regular hard drives are pretty much disks that are always spinning. The more movement you have inside of a system, it's going to wear down over time. So that doesn't really matter for the long run of anything, but it's just one of those things that would tell you that this little device, it's one of those devices that would need upkeep over a long period of time. Again, because it's a manga, we're probably not going to get that kind of scenario happening, but it's pretty cool to hear that this is more of a mechanical thing than it is a, I guess, digital thing. I guess that is it's pretty cool to know that. I do still have the question though of how exactly does the voice altering work, because Shinso still needs to dial into a very specific sound. Now, going on with Shinso, he also had another thing. One thing I always wondered was, if Shinso talks to someone in a different language, will it work? And with the little bit that he had with the Izuku thing at the beginning of that page, and I'll show it up here too, he was talking about how the characters can't really... There's a limit to the level of cognition that a brainwashed person will be able to do. So replication of something that is within eyesight seems to be okay, but it seems that information recall is where things get messy. So pretty interesting to know that too. That was pretty cool little, pretty cool little detail for Shinso to have there. So given that it's already that limited, I don't think that someone who speaks in another language listening to Shinso and responding to him saying anything would work and activate his quirk, which is pretty neat. Ultimately, this chapter was just establishing the limits of Shinso's quirk, and I do think it's still useful, but now it's the degree of it's going to be tough to use it, especially if the villains know what this guy is about. So he might end up having to be a master of disguise. That would be pretty cool for him, though. Continuing with the Shinso stuff, we're getting Shinso's development here, and just the Class 1A. If one thing that Kaminari does really well, it's becoming friends with the rough people. I do like the little scene with Kaminari just telling him, like, yeah, he's pretty cool. Also, Tsuyu had her strong scene as well, with talking about regretting putting Shinso in the front lines and then coming up with a different plan. That's really good, too. Again, she's gonna end up being the one that's gonna be taking the lead here, just because one, people look to her as being calm and centered, and then she's also the one with the most experience now that Kirishima has been taken out. So it's gonna be interesting to see how she leads a team. It'd be really interesting if Tsuyu ends up being a Shikamaru type character, like from Naruto, you know, like how Shikamaru is technically the leader of teams, even though Naruto is the main character. It'd be really interesting if we got to see that in the future, especially since now the Hero Society is based around teams more than they are one single individual. Would I like to see it? Yeah, obviously, of course. Is it going to happen? Right now, it's still looking a little bit too sketchy. We need to see what's going on. And I can't see a situation where Tsuyu ends up being the leader, right? I can't see it. I can't see a situation that would call that kind of maneuver in. In Naruto, you initially had team-based missions, which they were doing since they were kids from the beginning, right? They were always in squads, such that having a leader role just was natural. We don't really see that in Hero Academia yet, even though they have talked about establishing the hero teams. Anyway, I don't think I have much else to say other than, oh yeah, the kid with the air shields, he got a bit of an indirect kiss from Tsuyu since her tongue was wrapped around his lips. I thought that was kind of funny. But other than that, there's not really much else. It was just a cool kind of little battle chapter. Kirishima was kind of useless for the majority of this in terms of screen time. He didn't really get a lot. I think Koda got a little bit more than him in this chapter. But hey, all good. Kirishima gets a lot of attention, so we don't necessarily need his attention now. I'm still pretty excited to see the conclusion to this little confrontation here. But without a doubt, this group of Class 1B, they've done well. I don't really need to see any more of them. So in terms of leaving an impression, they won out. I think this was a great chapter. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. And until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.